This first exercise is working on some landing prioritization. This is our first progression where we're working in a very controlled manner. These are blind drop holds, meaning that we are going to be standing up on our toes, arms extended, but we're going to close our eyes to increase the challenge and put a greater emphasis on what we call proprioception, which is our body's awareness of itself in space. Eyes closed, drop and hold. We're going to be performing these blind drops, not only straight down, but to the side as well. Up and drop. We're taking a mental checklist. When we land, do we feel strong and stable? And are we connected? Next drill we have here was what's called a standing send. As we initiate our penultimate stride, which we'll get into later, we're going to be doing what's called sending the arms. The arm send is a nice little way to wind up the arm drive, the shoulders, and create some tension in order to create some stretch reflex through that stride. So from the side, we lower, nice and relaxed, and we're going to bring the arms back into extension, and we're looking to feel that stretch at end range and ride that natural impulse back to the hip. Another focus point is shoulder remains over hip, hip remains over ankle, so that we can mimic that same posture as we get when we go through our penultimate stride. This allows us to do it in a little bit more of a balanced setting. We don't want to throw the arms back too aggressively. We want to make sure this remains comfortable because the reps here are a little bit higher. This is the penultimate step and hold. We're starting to introduce some of these positions that become prevalent in our jumps. So we're going to lower our center of mass just slightly. We are going to step. And as we step, what we're going to notice, if I go from the side, go from this way for you. As we step, I step the hip, not the head, meaning we're not diving our head forward on the step. Step, keep the hip back, shoulder over hip, and we hold. This should feel like the majority of the weight is displaced evenly between your feet. We're not leaning into the front foot into a lunge. We're not sitting on that back knee. We're distributing that weight evenly with the toe of that front foot or our plant foot slightly elevated, so the weight is primarily on the heel and gentle outside of the foot. Step and hold. We progress our penultimate step and hold into what's called a penultimate jab. The penultimate jab is simply a faster moving variation. So if our first one was a step, the jab has us place that aggressively. And you'll notice that instinctively I brought my arms back or sent my arms because we're going to be adding in a send. Lower, jab, and send. We get to this position, we take stock or a checklist of how we feel. Do we feel balanced? Are we completely out of control? Is our weight forward or back? It should be even, just like it was in that penultimate step and hold. Let's do one more. Lower, we jab, and back. We progress this even further from a penultimate jab with arm to a jab and walk through. So now we're going to introduce some stimulus to our plant leg, which is the leg that moves forward. So we're lowered, we jab, we get this position established, and from there, I'm going to keep my shoulder over my hip, and I'm going to walk myself through to the point of my plant being completely established. Step back, I lower, jab, shift my weight without falling forward too aggressively, and I walk through. I'm holding these positions 2 to 3 seconds, just enough to feel a little bit awkward, but we have to build these neurological connections, and to do so, we need to spend some time in those positions. All right, lastly for workout 1 is our push drill. Our push drill is exactly that. We're trying to establish the behavior behind the initiation of our penultimate stride. So what we're doing here, I'll go from the side so we can see. Again, we're lowering the hip. We should already have this built in from the previous movements, and we are going to drive and push to our plant foot. Here, lowered, a little bit of momentum, and push. You'll notice that I'm just walking myself through my plant foot. I'm not getting or jumping, I'm just pushing, driving with my hip forward, not my head. Push. And we're making sure, obviously, to balance this out, we're doing this on both plants, no matter what type of jumper you are.